Greetings and welcome to this presentation done by Group 25 of the Knowledge Base and Control System course at TU Delft, where we're going to describe the direct adaptive neural flight control system used for controlling an unstable unmanned aircraft. In regards to the structure of this presentation, first we're going to introduce the topic that was researched, and then we're going to discuss the control scheme used, which is a direct adaptive neural control scheme. After that, we're going to go through some disadvantages or disadvantages of this kind of controller. We're going to examine some alternative methods, and then we're going to wrap up with a conclusion. So the objective. The main task of the main purpose was the paper that we researched was to design a neural network controller that will control an unstable unmanned research aircraft, which was similar in configuration to a combat or military aircraft. And for that, the direct adaptive neural flight control system is used, and the main task is to basically follow a pitch rate command, which is given. So yeah, when we talk about the adaptive and neural network control systems, we could split it into several parts. Regarding the neural networks, well, neural networks mimic the biological nervous system observed in some living beings, and has the capacity to adapt to some input-output data. Also, adaptive control has the capacity of change or adapt, as the name says, to new or changed circumstances, some sort of improvising. And basically, in the controllers that we're going to see, the role of the neural networks is basically to be the controller, so to approximate the corresponding control law and to learn the underlying relationship between the input and the output data. So this direct adaptive neural control structure is used because to try and go around some of the failures that could occur with gain scheduling techniques in regards to tracking performance, and to also provide for closed loop stability of the aircraft. So here we have a block diagram structure of this kind of controller, in which we have three main blocks: the neural controller, which is the controller itself; the aircraft model, which is the actual aircraft being controlled or system being controlled; and the pilot command filter, which is in charge basically of outputting the desired dynamics that the system should follow. So the first step is that the pilot stick deflection, for the case of research of controlling the pitch of the aircraft. The pilot stick deflection is fed to the neural controller and the pilot command filter. After that, the neural controller uses this information to generate an input that is then fed into the aircraft model. And also the pilot command filter outputs a desired output signal that should be tracked. So after that happens, the difference between the desired output, which is from the pilot command filter, and the output from the aircraft model are compared and used as an error that is then fed back to the neural controller to learn. In regards to the pitch rate command performance, so on the paper, here we see some of the results. We see two sets of data, the left side and the right side. And in the top graphs, you can see the elevator deflection that was used to control the pitch. And then the middle graph is the interesting one, is the one showing the pitch rate, and it shows the desired one and the one obtained. So you can see that in both cases, in the left and the right, the controller does a good job tracking the desired performance. And then the last bottom graph is the pitch. Now, one important thing of this adaptive controller is that it can also adapt to uncertainties in the model. So in the left graph, as you can see in the bottom, there was a 3% change in the center of gravity of the aircraft, but also some sensor noise was included for the test, and a gust of 45 meters per second was included, which is very relevant for small research aircraft. Likewise, in the right side, also some sensor noise was included and a gust, but additionally, the control authority of the elevator input for controlling the pitch was also changed, and the system had to adapt to it, which it did successfully. Now, it's important to notice that these researchers previously used an indirect controller, but this direct one was more successful. And that brings me to the next topic, which is to examine the advantages and disadvantages of these kinds of controllers.
So yeah, a number of advantages and disadvantages should be noted for this method. On the side of advantages, the algorithm displayed really good tracking performance. The aircraft was successfully able to follow the aircraft pitch command, achieving a mean squared error of less than 0.02. It was also demonstrated that less effort were required using this method for the same aircraft as compared to the indirect scheme as mentioned previously. There was no need for explicit system identification using this approach, and lastly, the direct adaptive controller was able to achieve stability of the closed loop system. Now, on the cons side, the reliance of the method on neural networks makes certifiability extremely difficult due to the non-deterministic nature of neural networks. For the very same reason, there is no guarantee of convergence in different scenarios. It should also be noted that the control input becomes unsteady if non-linear effects are to be included. Finally, there is a possible control saturation or a trigger of undesired dynamics, which should be noted. The iterative approach model may be a good model for the plant with one controller, but it is not guaranteed to be a good model if for all controllers, since unmodeled dynamics can have a profound effect on the stability of the learning algorithms for adaptive control. Now that we have reviewed the pros and cons, some alternative approach can be considered. We mainly looked at machine learning based method and other methods. Regarding machine learning methods, notable ones included reinforcement learning and deep reinforcement learning based methods, which learned behaviors through experience, and alternative network architectures could also be considered, such as LSTMs, BLSTMs, RNN, etc. Those are networks that are able to not only look at a state, but at the sequence of states experienced. On the other hand, we also looked at fuzzy logic and Gaussian processes. Next slide, please. So regarding the alternative approaches considered, we looked at the hybrid adaptive control methods with model inversion adaptation. This approach uses a combination of indirect and direct methods to reduce the model inversion error and correct for residual tracking error. On the next slide, we also researched Gaussian network approaches for direct adaptive control. Here, the idea is to employ Gaussian functions to compensate for plant non-linearity. A notable feature of this method is its ability to transition from an adaptive to non-adaptive mode of operation according to the degree of accuracy of the controller in the various part of the state space. Lastly, we considered indirect adaptive control and discovered a number of models which use which use a model of the plant which is identified online. In this control scheme, the identification error is used to update the control parameters, and model and inverse model is determined using various available techniques, again, such as fuzzy logic, neural networks, etc. Among other algorithms which we looked into was reinforcement learning based on closed loop reference model, adaptive flight control system design, and a number of fuzzy methods such as hybrid, fuzzy direct, indirect adaptive controllers for uncertain nonlinear systems. So to conclude, the method proposed in this paper demonstrated that it was successfully able to control the pitching behavior and to provide the necessary tracking performance. It should, however, be noted that it does have advantages and disadvantages which can be addressed using other methods, which again come with their own advantages and disadvantages. Which one achieves the task most effectively still is yet to be determined. And that's about it for now. Thank you very much for your attention, and that's it.